Welcome in to the NFL PFF betting show. Boys, the playoffs are here. It's Wildcard weekend. The non-consequential football is over. It is the one and done tournament, and we are ready to bring you some betting action. How you guys doing? It was a long season. We had a lot of money making. Judah, you just hit a SGP to cap off the regular season there in the final game. Judah, how are you feeling? We're in playoff time.
Yeah, the season I felt like was too quick. It always is, but there's a special excitement around playoff time. Definitely nice to cash an SGP on the very last game of the season. Calvin Austin, Aaron Rodgers really coming through, and then obviously Tyler Loop helping to finish us off. Super stoked for Wildcard weekend. I think this is like a really fun playoffs as well. It's been a long time since kind of the question is like, not will the Chiefs do it or will the Chiefs not do it, but like who's coming out of either league. And we've got Sam Darnold and Bo Nix as the quarterbacks. No disrespect, Mason, to Bo Nix here. But these are the quarterbacks of the number one teams in each conference. And that is very, very different than what we've had in years past.
Bo leave, baby. Bo leave. Ben, we had a great little show earlier on in the week. We talked about some pressure matchups. So if you guys haven't actually gone to check that out, make sure you guys go do on the PFF YouTube channel. We have a lot of really good matchups here, and we got a lot of good insight from that one. Are you excited to break down into some of these games this week?
Absolutely. We were talking a little bit before we started. Last week, we were sitting on like Sunday morning, and I'm waiting on these props to come out. And this week, we hit Monday, Tuesday, and we've got all the props. So I'm looking forward to diving in here.
Yeah, and of course, if you guys want all of the action from this week's games, make sure you get yourself a PFF Plus subscription. 30% off right now with promo code HOLIDAY30. And of course, if you want to get in on the action over at DraftKings, use our code PFF to get in on that. Boys, we're going to jump right into the action. Ben, we're going to start off with you. Go ahead and give us what your game line bet of the week is this week.
Yeah, we're going to go with Green Bay -0.5 in the first half against the Bears. So basically just Green Bay to win the first half plus 105. I like Green Bay for the full game. I like this first half number at plus money a little bit better. And it's basically Chicago has started games slowly this season. They are 3-7 in the first half in their last 10 games. Typically when you think of these Bears games is they start slow and then we get this crazy Caleb Williams push and the game's in the balance at the end. And that's kind of how both of these Green Bay, Chicago games have been this season, where Green Bay has controlled the first half. They've had a lead going into halftime. They held on in the Week 14 game. The Week 16 game, they took an onside kick from Chicago to win in overtime. But I think the Packers are in a good spot here, and a lot of it is this passing offense has been excellent this year, particularly when defenses can't get pressure. And this Bears defense is bottom 5 in the league in pressure rate. Green Bay's offense is second in EPA per dropback from a clean pocket this year. It's basically them in New England, and then there's a little bit of a tier break if you're looking at those EPAs. And this Chicago defense has given up production downfield, right? And that's something that this Green Bay offense for a couple years with Jordan Love has done a really good job of attacking downfield. Christian Watson is averaging like 4 yards per route run against the Bears in the last 2 seasons. They've been able to connect downfield. So I think they'll be explosive. Josh Jacobs is off the injury report. He's probably as healthy as he has been in a while with this run game. And there are concerns with the Packers defense, but there's been concerns the last 2 times that they played the Bears. They've both come late in the season, both of them without Devontae Wyatt, the second game without Micah Parsons. And the Bears have been able to run the ball a decent bit on the Packers, but that really hasn't changed the fact that the Packers have been in position to win both of these games. So I like the Packers to win. I specifically like them to win the first half at plus 105.
Well, yeah, and if you go back to that last game that they played in Chicago, the game that goes to overtime, Malik Willis, he came out and he played a really good game for them as well. So for them to get Jordan Love, he's going to be healthy and they're going to be rolling. And like you said, when they play clean, now I think one of the things is with Elton Jenkins, having been missing for the better part of, back half of the season there, that really hit their offensive line and their protection, but getting Zach Tom back is going to be a big asset to them, their best pass blocker by a pretty wide margin there. Judah, do you see anything with this matchup that intrigues you with either side of this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of what Ben said, if you kind of slice and dice the data in any such way to get at like how the Packers and Jordan Love in particular have played against like a lack of disruption or pressure or any of these sorts of metrics, and it's the Packers are really, really good at kind of taking advantage of a defense's mistakes. In particular, like Jordan Love is in a tier of his own on plays with the coverage mistake, i.e. no perfect coverage. He's at like 0.6 EPA. The second tier is kind of at 0.4. The problem for the Packers this year has been, especially relative to previous years, is this is a team that's seeing a lot more perfect coverage. They're below average in kind of forcing coverage mistakes. And this matchup, I think, and really where the Packers sit in two ways it benefits them. Number one, the Bears have been the third worst team at generating perfect coverage. So that's a great matchup. And I think that's kind of on the macro trend of the Bears not doing a great job kind of creating these disruptor events. And then the second piece is the Packers wide receivers are healthy for the first time, and like losing Tucker Kraft is huge. That's been a reality for the full season. But we've had very, very few snaps of three receiver sets of Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, and Christian Watson. That has really not been a reality for the Packers this year. And I think that adds so much to this offense, and it's kind of an indicator that we're going to see kind of a lot of the perfect coverage rates. If we aggregated this wide receiving unit over the course of the season, I think this number would look a bit more like a team forcing a top 5 rate of coverage mistakes, given the priors we should have with these guys, rather than a team that's like 21st in forcing coverage mistakes. So I think this is a Packers offense that's suited for success. There's going to be some weather questions. I think that's like a type of thing that is going to be relevant, but it's a little bit more relevant that Saturday at 6:00 than it is kind of Friday morning. So we'll see how that goes. That's kind of the only concern here. But yeah, I'm with Ben here. I think the Packers offense are really well suited for success here.
It's so funny that they have an embarrassment of riches at receiver. They draft a first round receiver, Matthew Golden, and the guy gets fewer than 10 routes run a game because they're just so loaded at receiver with all of these guys that know how to play within the system. So that is going to be, an interesting draw for this one. And of course, we've got January football in Chicago. Weather is definitely always going to be a factor in this one. So make sure you guys are keeping an eye on the weather reports as we get into it. And so we'll jump into the next game that we're targeting. And Judah, great minds think alike here. We have a pretty similar lean. So I'll start it off. I'll set us up a little bit, and we'll tail into what you're seeing in this one too. So I think the game that Judah and I both are liking here is the Jacksonville side on Jacksonville-Buffalo. One of the big things for me is that this team's just been very hot down the stretch. 8 straight wins and covers. And over that span, they've had a 19.1 average victory margin. Now, granted, not a ton of high-caliber opponents in that group that they faced, but they did slap a couple of playoff teams in the Chargers and in the Denver Broncos in Denver by over 14 points. And Trevor Lawrence, he's been playing out of his mind. Some of the best football of his career. 94.0 PFF grade since week 13. That's the second highest in the NFL. And it comes up against a strength for Buffalo. This Buffalo defense has actually been fairly strong in coverage. They've allowed the fewest yards per attempt over the final 5 games. But they're likely not going to have Maxwell Harrison. He's dealing with that ankle, so that's going to be a little bit of a drawback for them. But still, that's going to be a strength versus strength in this game, where I see a real opportunity for Jacksonville is actually on the ground. The Bills' run defense down the back half of the year and for pretty much the entire season has struggled. They're 28th in rushing success rate allowed over the back half of the year, 24th in yards per attempt on designed runs. So I think this could be a big day for the Jacksonville backfield. Travis Etienne, he's been a guy that we've seen be able to break loose against some teams that have struggled to keep him out of the second level. I think we see that as an opportunity in this matchup. And conversely, when we go to the other side of the football, I think the key also lies in the running game, where we talk about Jacksonville. They've been very good against the run. They're 3rd in rushing success rate allowed this season. And that comes as a key point against this Bills offense, because when we look at some of these games where the Bills, so the league average in positive EPA percentage on runs is 39.5%. This is something I highlighted a few weeks back when this Bills team played Houston. When the Bills are above that mark, they're 10-1. When they're below that mark, they're 1-4. So I think this is an opportunity where if Jacksonville can control their running game, they can win this game pretty handedly. And Judah, so I'm taking the money line here. You're taking it a little bit further. You're going to push this line out in favor of Jacksonville. Go ahead and tell us what you're targeting in this one.
Yeah, I think there are kind of 2 points of view here. One is kind of a fundamentals point of view that you're outlining, that I think the Jaguars could be really mispriced here, and it's a function of yes, they have dominated some weaker opponents, but I think even looking at the process by which they've done that, it kind of reveals that, or at least to me signals the Jaguars are perhaps a little better than the market's pricing. And the main change has been really since Jacoby Myers arrived, and that coincided with the Jaguars' bye, a change in how they're attacking deep downfield. Trevor Lawrence was throwing deep, like roughly 8% of the time, and it was fairly consistent over the first half of the season. They've had one game now, fewer than or less than a 15% deep percentage rate, and that's been an area where Trevor Lawrence has historically been terrific, and it's been no exception kind of over the second half of the season, where this is a team that Trevor Lawrence is averaging almost a point per deep throw, and if you're doing that on 20% of your throws, you're going to be extremely successful. And I don't think that's a coincidence. And you can kind of look at change in 2 ways and say, hey, why would you kind of over-index on the most recent data? It's probably just a small sample, and you can argue there are confounding factors like the fact that they haven't had the toughest opponents. But I think the other way to look at it is like, no, this is a team that's made a philosophical change, and given what we know about Trevor Lawrence for years now, it's playing a lot more to his strengths. So I'm buying the Jaguars offense in general. I think they're going to have an explosive element against any opponent, and particularly in this matchup, I think they should be able to run the ball, because the Bills have not really stopped anyone, and that's a pretty terrific combo for a Jaguars offense that's been kind of top 5 in points per drive over the second half of the season. The reason that tails are particularly intriguing to me, though, has to do with Josh Allen. And it's Josh Allen and Josh Allen's kind of interaction in this matchup. I don't think Josh Allen's perfectly healthy. And it's one thing to kind of say that as a viewer watching, and to some degree that's true. But also, if you look at kind of the data from the last 6 quarters, really since he got hurt in that game against Cleveland, he, number one, was scrambling way less frequently. And I think more important is something that we can track called like what I call pocket extension or play extension, which is how long you extend the play once pressure arrives, either via a throw or when you cross the line of scrimmage on a scramble or sack. And Josh Allen is usually sitting in that kind of 1.6 range, which is at the very, very top of the NFL. The league average is 1.2 seconds. He was around 0.9 seconds extending the play. Like, he had no either ability or interest or whatever it would be to extend those plays. Number one, that's huge because so much of Josh Allen's success comes in particular on the deep throws that he makes as he extends plays. I think it's also particularly relevant in this matchup because what the Jaguars have done so well is defend the quick passes and yards after the catch. This is a team that, and certainly over the second half of the season, is number 2 in quick pass EPA, number 2 in Yackle out, only behind Denver, and they do a really, really terrific job. I don't think it's a coincidence that Josh Allen's quick pass rate last week was 55%, or the last week he played against the Eagles. Now, all of this can be kind of taken aback, and like, we'll see very early on, hey, Josh Allen's healthy, he's extending plays, but there is a legitimate possibility that like he is just simply not capable of dealing with this injury of extending in the same way. And it's the process by which he's doing it, less so than how good he might actually be. In that way, I think the tails are really intriguing, because if we get a pretty limited Josh Allen, or we don't get Josh Allen at his best in a matchup that kind of confounds that, I think this is a spot where the Jaguars can really, really take advantage and kind of blitz them. Not literally blitz them, but score more points, because the Jaguars don't blitz. Score a bunch of points and really win with margin. here. So you kind of take those two angles. And I know I'm very bullish on the Jaguars kind of as a future, and I'm very, very bullish on the Jaguars in this game as well.
And you raise a good point. This foot has been bugging him for a little bit. And if we look back to that last game against the Eagles, he had a 61.9 grade in that game because he really was restricted in what he was asked to do. He didn't really, do a ton. He got the ball out of his hands quick and really had everybody else do the heavy lifting there. Ben, do you see anything else in this matchup in particular?
Yeah, I'm on Jacksonville too, which makes me a little nervous that everyone's on Jacksonville. But for a lot of the same reasons, like the Bills' receiving core is just so limited, and I think there's a chance that we get Dalton Kincaid back in more of like a full-time role, and they've been kind of limiting him for the playoffs, which does help. He's been their best receiver this year. But you look at that Eagles game, it's like Brandon Cooks, who they signed off the street, is the guy making plays downfield. Like there's just not a lot of options. So if they don't get the run game going. And I'm not going to say that just because Jacksonville's defended the run well, the Bills can't get the run game going. They've been an excellent rushing team. And this is kind of similar to what we saw last year against the Broncos in the playoffs, where the Broncos had a great run defense and James Cook went 23 for 120 or whatever he did in that game. So, I think that is what they need. But I believe in this Jacksonville offense too. And Lawrence has been great against too high over this 8-game winning streak to close the season. I think they're averaging 7.7 yards per dropback, which is best in the NFL. They haven't been super great when you look at a lot of their efficiency numbers running the ball down the stretch, but this Bills defense is bad enough where they can do enough on the ground, and I think Lawrence can have success in the air. So I'm with you guys on Jacksonville.
Beck says, we all like the Jags too much. It's never been more over. I think if the Jags end up losing, we collectively at this table probably jinx them. It's going to be a good matchup. I think this is definitely one of the highlight matchups of the Wildcard weekend, and it's going to be an excellent one. In both facets, both of these teams, the Bills know that they've got to do this thing this year, and there's a lot of pressure on that side of the football, where the Jags, they're trying to enter a new era for what this team can be under Liam Cohen. So it's going to be a pretty monumental game, and I can't wait to watch it happen. And of course, boys, now we get to jump in to our prop bets of the week. But first, everybody needs to check out the new PFF player prop tool.
Everyone's got takes. Numbers have truth. And the truth is, most people are betting with emotion. Sportsbooks feed on it. TikTok rules sell it. The hype machine runs on it. That's how you lose. PFF is different. You're betting with winning data. The same data trusted by all 32 NFL teams and the sharpest minds in the game. PFF betting tools take every prop, every matchup, every angle, and run them through our custom models. Built on the best football data in the world. What comes back is your edge. Simple, sharp, and built to win. Want to go deeper? PFF puts a pro-level analytics department in your hands, giving you the same insights teams use to find every advantage. Build your game plan with matchup analysis. Project every snap, every matchup, and every edge before kickoff, because the smartest plays start long before Sunday. Hit rates show how a player performs against their prop and against defenses built the same way. It's the data that gives you real confidence in every pick. Next, Key Insights translates PFF data into the story behind every matchup, giving you the why that powers your bets. From coverage schemes to defensive looks, it's the context that turns raw numbers into winning decisions. When you're ready to take action, filter through every prop on the market and focus on the opportunities that matter, by game, matchup, or value. Then, shop for the best available line in your area and tap your book of choice to place the bet instantly. Everyone's got takes, but now you've got truth. Bet with data, win with PFF.
All right, and of course, if you guys want to get access to the PFF Player Prop tool, make sure you go get a PFF Plus subscription right now, 30% off with code HOLIDAY30. Boys, we're jumping into our Player Prop bets of the week. Judah, let's go straight to you, and then we'll move into Ben, because you guys have a one from the same game here. Tell us what you're targeting for your Player Prop bet of the week.
Yeah, Nico Collins at 70 receiving yards. This is a Pittsburgh defense that has played the fifth most man coverage of any team, and really does not have anyone to kind of defend Nico Collins one-on-one. This is a guy in Nico Collins who is going on, I think, 3 straight years now of being top 5 in the NFL in yards per route run against man coverage. He's seeing 30% of the targets. And I think kind of adding to this is a Steelers defense that since week 12 has blitzed at one of the highest rates in the NFL. And Nico Collins' target share there is 31%. This is a guy who I think is going to be targeted very, very often in a spot where I think volume should accumulate for the Texans, especially with Derek Harmon back. This is a team that's wanted to pass the ball, especially recently, and you're looking at a guy who I think should see 10 plus targets, and I think those should be some fairly efficient ones in man coverage against a Steelers defense. I mean, James Pierre's been solid, but a lot of their other corners have struggled, especially in preventing separation in man coverage. I think it's really a terrific spot for Collins and even this Texans passing offense.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of it from everybody essentially playing this Steelers defense. They've struggled quite a bit to hold down receivers. And when we look at some of their, overall rankings in terms of receptions allowed and receiving yards allowed, 30th in allowing receptions to receivers this season, and then 28th in receiving yards allowed to receivers this season. And a lot of it has been because they've just been very stagnant in their ability to consistently play man coverage, despite a lot of times it not working, sometimes the pressure not getting there. It's really been an ebb and flow for this team. And, we've seen that from some of the teams that have been man-heavy teams this season. But even like the Detroit Lions, we saw a switch up there towards the end of the year where they realized, hey, we just can't really stick together. We don't have the guys out there right now to, play sticky man coverage. And we've seen a lot of these pro quarterbacks are pushing the issue and are able to, pick on, at least the higher level ones are able to pick on, man coverage when it's just not quite there. Ben, do you see anything in that bet particular? We'll move to yours in a second, but do you see anything with the Texans side of this?
It's Joey Porter Jr. erasure from you guys. He's top 10 in average advanced coverage grade this year. He's allowed under 300 yards. Like, the Steelers have given up production, but and Terrell Austin came out because I believe Ben Roethlisberger went on his podcast and is like, Joey Porter Jr. should just shadow Nico Collins. So then now Terrell Austin's coming out and saying he's not going to do that. It's not going to be all on him. So I do think there's opportunities for Nico, and I do think the Texans are going to be pretty pass heavy because I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball on the Steelers. They're third lowest rushing success rate in the league. Their offensive line isn't great. Steelers have actually been decent versus the run kind of down the stretch. They really sold out in that Week 18 game against the Ravens. That's where you saw some of the explosives to Zay Flowers, was just kind of plays where the Steelers and Tomlin came out and said after the game, we weren't going to let Derrick Henry and Lamar beat us. And after that first quarter and first half, they really didn't let them on the ground. It was those two explosives, kind of where they were selling out and busted coverages. I don't really think that's going to be the case against Houston because they don't pose the same threat. But I do think the Texans can get some volume in the passing game, and that will give Nico Collins opportunities.
And you have a lean on the other side of this one as well, on the Pittsburgh side. Go ahead and tell us your player prop bet of the week.
Yeah, I'm going on the other side with DK Metcalf coming off suspension, and I'm going longest reception over 21.5 yards, minus 115. And when you look at this matchup, it's a bad matchup for the Steelers passing offense. Rodgers has been super sensitive to pressure. He's the lowest success rate in the NFL as a passing offense against pressure this year. But you look at how they're going to deal with that, and you say, all right, he's going to get the ball out quick. And typically, people just kind of associate getting the ball out quick with all these underneath passes. And there are going to be those. Kenneth Gainwell's, I'm sure, going to get his in this game. But there's also these quick vertical throws down the sidelines are another way to get the ball out of your hands quickly. And Aaron Rodgers does that more than pretty much any quarterback in the NFL. If you look at just throws 20-plus yards downfield in under 2.5 seconds, he's tied for the NFL lead with Matthew Stafford this year at over 20 attempts. And this is a Texans defense that they're very good at not giving up much on these underneath throws. They're allowing the lowest yards per attempt of any defense in the NFL on throws less than 10 yards downfield. So the Steelers are unlikely to have a ton of success doing that. So I think they're going to attack deep, and that's something that we've also seen against this Texan defense. They're allowing the 8th most deep attempts in the NFL. And with DK Metcalf coming back from suspension, I'm imagining the Steelers are going to try to get him some downfield targets early in this game against the Texas defense that funnels targets downfield. And it's also a way to get the ball out of Rodgers' hands quickly while still having some upside in the passing offense. And we saw last week Riley Leonard and Alec Pierce connected downfield. I know Kamari Lassiter was out for that game. Looks like he's going to be back here. But I think Metcalf is going to get some opportunities downfield as a way for the Steelers to get the ball out of Rodgers' hands quickly without just all of that being swing passes to Gainwell and Jonnu Smith screens.
I like that you said the Jonnu Smith screens because we're on some over 1.5 on some Jonnu Smith receptions as well here. No, I mean, I could definitely see where you're coming from with that because they're going to want to get him the ball. You could tell that they very, very much missed him over those last 2 games where he was suspended, and getting him going early is going to really help them dictate what they're going to be able to do offensively in this game. Judah, do you see anything on the Steelers side of this one?
Yeah, I think that's I like Ben's call, and certainly if they're going to have a lot of success, I think it needs to be kind of on those vertical routes to get rid of the ball quick. I think game script is kind of the name of the game here, which is that if the Steelers are playing from ahead or in a neutral spot, I think they're somewhat better in a better spot to take advantage of the Texans or mitigate the Texans the best. Like Aaron Rodgers throws the ball at the quickest rate in the NFL. Like that does help mitigate a pass rush. Where it doesn't help, and this is like magnified in EPA situations, it's like on third downs when it's an obvious passing situation, and there's only so much you can do quickly when you need 8-9 yards for a first down, or the equivalent is just like when the defense knows you're passing. Pressure and the ability to generate pressure matters a bit more. So that's kind of the spot I'm looking at. And I think to some degree it's true on both sides. I think the Texans offensive line has improved. Having Trent Brown back, which I anticipate happening, will be pretty big. Ursary also has been far, far better over the second half of the season. And like that, I think is not, anchoring to a smaller sample, but like, especially if you look at like the offensive line curves and development curves, it takes time for a lot of these offensive linemen to get better. And I think it's not really a coincidence. And like these guys are not dominant tackles, but at the same rate, like this is a weakling system. You basically just need these guys not to mess up very often. And that's kind of the baseline play that the Texans offensive line has given them. And obviously against the Steelers edge players, that's extremely important. But that's only limited because conversely, like if the Steelers are in a lot of really advantageous situations, I don't want CJ Stroud having to navigate pressure. And that's certainly not an area he's been successful in the NFL. So game state to me is the name of the game. But angles also on the player side, kind of no matter what in the game within the game.
It's going to be a good one.
I think the Steelers are they need to run the ball, and they're going to be a little bit more willing. That Ravens game, they're pretty pass heavy, but that's against the Ravens defense who doesn't really have a pass rush. I think this Houston game, they're going to be a little bit more conservative, and they ran the ball well against the Ravens. They've run the ball pretty well down the stretch in general against the Lions, against Miami. So like this is a game where Jaylen Warren against the Texas defense that has been pretty good against the run, but they've also lost some pieces up front. They lost Mario Edwards. They lost Tim Settle. They'll need to get a big game out of Warren on the ground.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one to cap off the wild card weekend here. We're going to go to another big game of consequence that we talked a little bit about, Ben, when we were talking about our pressure matchups in that video that we recorded earlier this week. And one that I'm going to go to in that game is actually going to be George Kittle under 60.5 receiving yards. So one of the things that we did talk about within that game was that San Francisco, number 1 in EPA per play when they're clean, but 24th in EPA per play when under pressure. And that could lead to an issue against a team like this with Philly, where they're top 10 in pressure rate. They're getting after the passer. And this is going to be something where, Trent Williams, I think we said that he came back to practice yesterday. But that's going to be something worth watching with the hamstring. Make sure that doesn't flare up again, because without Trent Williams, that could exacerbate that issue even further and create more of an issue for them to get the ball to guys like George Kittle. one of the things that we were looking at is Kittle coming back from the ankle injury. I mean, he didn't really have a massive impact versus Seattle. 5 receptions, 29 yards. It was mostly short stuff, about 4 yards of average depth per target. That was his second lowest ADOT game of the year. It's a far cry from 7.5, where he's generally sat this season. And it may be because of that ankle, still sort of coming back, nursing it. He was limited in practice Wednesday and Thursday. So that sort of points to maybe not fully being there, not fully being back, still sort of nursing the ankle a little bit. So that's going to be something worth watching. But when we talk about this matchup against the Eagles, they've just absolutely smothered tight ends this season. They're first in positive EPA percentage on tight end targets, as well as first in yards per coverage target allowed. It's just 5.1 yards per coverage target allowed. That's a full yard lower than any other team in the NFL. And really, they've only allowed 2 tight ends to exceed 45 yards this season. We had week 2, Travis Kelce, he had 61. Week 12, Jake Ferguson, he had 60. And that's not just saying, oh, okay, well, they didn't really play very many great tight ends. Well, they had Dawson Knox when Dalton Kincaid was out. He went 5 for 30. We had Brock Bowers. He went 6 for 28. So really, it's a philosophy thing that they've been able to take away the tight end. They don't want the tight end to beat you. They're really good at the linebacker level to be able to do that. So that's one of the places that I've seen this be sort of a underrated mismatch here, where George Kittle is generally, one of the best tight ends in the NFL, but hampered by the ankle. This could be a number that is not really quite as close for them as many might think on the surface. Ben, are you seeing anything else in that matchup, particularly with maybe Kittle, or just with the matchup in general, where San Francisco is going to be struggling against a high pressure rate team?
Yeah, we talked about it on that earlier show, but I like the Eagles in this game, and this is a big number for Kittle, given that he's not 100%, and this is all those numbers you outlined on the Eagles and how well they've taken away tight ends. I think the counter argument would be that, especially if Pearsall misses, who hasn't practiced, it's like, what does this offense have? It's Kittle and McCaffrey, and then Demarcus Robinson and Kendrick Bourne and like these other pieces. But they might force him the ball a lot if that's the case. But I still like the under, right? Just because he's banged up, and this is a really tough matchup against Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm. Judah, do you see anything with that 49ers-Eagles matchup?
Yeah, I was going to bring up the same point as Ben. I like Pearsall injury. I think is relevant here, and I think Pearsall kind of would be the number one target as the kind of deep threat, and Philadelphia allows the 5th highest deep attempt percentage in the NFL. Like, I think that's a spot where the Niners sorely need him. I guess in general in the matchup, I mean, it's just like the San Francisco defense is atrocious right now. They're really hurt at linebacker. This is a spot where the Eagles should move the ball at will, but then again, the Eagles offense has just not been good this year. They're well below average in kind of series success rate. Any metric you want to look at, they really have not been great. So that is some concern, like how much are they going to self-destruct? Mind you, this is a team that last time they played did not complete a pass in the second half. That is, it's a data point, obviously, and it's somewhat fluky, but it's also revealing. The best offenses in the NFL don't have halves with no completions. That's just not in the cards. So I think it's, an anecdote which gets at a larger directional point of like, this is not the Eagles offense of the last couple of years, certainly not last year. So should they be able to take advantage of the Niners defense? Yes. Am I sold on that? No.
It definitely makes some sense. And you guys, Juwan Jennings erasure? What are we doing?
Yeah.
He's going to get punched by somebody in this game,
Yeah, I mean, this 49ers defense just kind of got marched down the field by Phillip Rivers. So, like, I know the Eagles have their issues on offense, but I find it hard to believe that they will just come out and lay an egg against the defense that is dealing with as many injuries as they are. Their backup linebackers are hurt now, and D. Winters and Tatum Bethune, and this is a unit that's really thin. And I'm kind of just choosing to believe that the Eagles' talent is going to overcome all of the other stuff that has held back the Eagles' offense this year.
The line is in a bit of a weird spot there at 5.5, and it's moved since we talked about it from 4.5 to 5.5. So that's going to be something worth watching, particularly as we get closer to this game and we get more, exact news past, if they're going to be game time decisions on guys like Pearsall, guys like Trent Williams, seeing who is going to be active and who is not here. And of course, boys, we're going to head into the best part of the show, our SGPs. Give you guys the game plans to make yourself some big money this week. But of course, if you don't know already, our game plan of the week is presented by Western and Southern Financial Group, a game plan for your financial future. Just like every team win starts with a great game plan, your future should too. With life insurance built like a championship roster, Western and Southern helps protect you and your family so you can focus on winning today, knowing tomorrow is covered. Whether you're just starting out building your dynasty, looking to lock in long-term protection, their coverage options are designed to match your game plan. Visit westernandsouthern.com/PFF to get your free life quote and start building your financial game plan today. Western and Southern, built to win, backed by over 130 years of helping people protect what matters most. All right, we've got some good ones here in this lineup. Ben, we're going to go straight to you here with another, pretty solid matchup. And this one might end up being a little bit closer than some people might anticipate with the New England Patriots and the LA Chargers. Go ahead and give us your SGP for that game.
Yeah, I'm going with Herbert, 280-plus passing yards, Gadsden, 60-plus receiving, Chargers -3.5. That is 29-1. And I like the Chargers in this game for a few reasons. One, everyone's talked about the defenses that Drake May has played in regards to his MVP debate. But I went and looked at the quarterbacks that the Patriots defense has played this year, and I'm just gonna read them off here. It's Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, the two best quarterbacks they've played. Then it's Geno Smith, Tua, Aaron Rodgers, Bryce Young, Spencer Rattler, Cam Ward, Dylan Gabriel, Michael Penix, Baker Mayfield, Justin Fields, Joe Flacco, Jackson Dart, Tyler Huntley in the second half of that Ravens game because Lamar got hurt. Cook on the Jets, Brady Cook, and Quinn Ewers. Those are the quarterbacks the Patriots have played. They've played one quarterback. If you look at the top passing grades in the NFL this year with at least 100 dropbacks, Josh Allen's the only one in the top 10. They haven't played another quarterback in the top 20. The next closest is Aaron Rodgers at 22nd with Lamar Jackson's down year. So this is a Patriots defense that has not been tested at all. And I know there are issues with the Chargers' offensive line. This is probably one of the best first-round matchups they could have gotten. I'm not scared of this Patriots pass rush. They'll probably still be able to create pressure because the Chargers' offensive line is as bad as it is. But I think Herbert's going to be able to have some success, like we've seen with some of the better quarterbacks that the Patriots have faced. And O'Marion Hampton not practicing. The Chargers' run game might not be fully there, so I think they're going to have to pass in this game. So I like volume from Herbert. The Gadsden part of it is this Patriots defense has been worse versus tight ends than they have versus wide receivers. They're, I believe, 21st in receiving yards per game allowed to tight ends this year. Gadsden's kind of cooled off since that hot stretch he had early to midseason, but he's still out there. He's still running routes. So I like him to clear 60. And then the Chargers spread, when you're looking at the other side, the Chargers defense, I think, is pretty underrated. When we're talking about a lot of these really good defenses coming into the playoffs, we're talking about Denver, Seattle, the Eagles. The Chargers might be just a step below that, but Jesse Minter's unit has done a really good job this year, both in terms of defending the run and the pass, and specifically, they've limited explosives really well. And that's something that this Patriots offense has thrived on. Their first explosive pass rate this year. So if you're forcing them to march down the field and on these slower drives, not saying that they can't do that. I do believe that despite kind of the light schedule, like Drake May and Josh McDaniels in this offense is legit. But I still think that the Chargers can come out and win this game and force the Patriots to be a little bit less efficient offensively than we've seen for a lot of the year.
I love the point you brought up about the defense for the Chargers. It's something that I think we've seen more of down the stretch of the season as teams have tried to sort of counter what we see with a lot of these teams that come out with, multiple tight ends. And that is that we need the big nickel. This is something Dalton and I talked about. The best teams right now are the teams that are running the lowest amount of base defenses because they have the pieces to do that. And one of those teams has been the Chargers, and they've been very strong defensively in that regard. So, I could definitely see that being an instance where it could give the Pats a little bit of trouble there, but still a really strong offensive unit. It is going to be something worth watching in that one. I think it is going to lead to some passing opportunities, particularly when we talk about the injuries with the Chargers running backs right now. I believe Hampton was DNP first two practices. We'll see what he comes out with on today's practice there. But Judah, do you see anything in that matchup with the Chargers and Pats?
Yeah. I think that the Chargers are going to have to pass the ball a bunch. I think the New England run defense is going to look a lot closer to the unit of the first half of the season with Milton Williams and Robert Spillane back. And that was one of the best run defenses in football, not the one that's been kind of dominated over the second half of the season. So I do think there's going to be a high percentage of plays for the Chargers that are passes or dropbacks, I should say. But I have a ton of concern about the Chargers' offensive line and a New England pass rush that I don't think gets enough love, and a team that has also blitzed their way to a lot of pressure. They've been the second most effective team at getting pressure on blitzes. If you want to look at pre-pressure rate, want to look at pressure disruption rate, this is a team that over the second half of the season is sixth best in the NFL. And this is obviously a Chargers offensive line that I think by all indications is 32nd best. And especially, again, kind of what we're talking about with Pittsburgh and Houston, if you're going to find yourself in obvious passing situations, you are really setting yourself up for a lot of these pressure scenarios. Now, the Patriots do play a lot of man coverage. Herbert has been incredible scrambling this year. And I think he very likely, he's going to need to play hero ball, I think, and there's a world where he can do that. Just the base rates here are very difficult, I think, to stomach. And I see a path where this is a pass rush which really creates a lot of trouble for the Chargers, excuse me. And in that regard, I think I'd have some concerns. There's also a world of possibility where the Patriots are playing so far out ahead, even in this scenario where Herbert can get there on yards. Obviously, the spread part of this won't go. I love the Gaston call out. I think against the coverages, he is going to be a key target. My concern lies with the Chargers' ability to hold up in protection, especially given where I think the Patriots' run defense is at and where the Chargers' run offense is at. And this is something that you brought up. I think it was last week. You were tailing some Justin Herbert rushing lines, and his rushing line this week for yardage 29.5. He ended up going over 29.5 in 3 of the last 4 games, including the matchup that you targeted him in. I believe it was last week, right? So I definitely see that opportunity too, as you're mentioning there. It's going to be an interesting matchup just to see sort of play out, because there are so many different factors with this one. I think one of the most interesting ones is that you called out, Judah, is that this run defense for the Patriots has not been there in the back half of the season. They were one of the best teams at stopping the run early on, and it actually funneled teams to throw the ball on them, but now it really hasn't been the case. That might be another one of the sort of drawbacks to potentially hitting on this one. But again, it really comes down to the running backs just health right there and their ability to push that ball that way.
Yeah, and to Judah's point, I do think the run defense, with Harold Landry potentially coming back, Robert Spillane potentially coming back, some of these pieces that they've been missing, Milton Williams came back a little bit ago. I think you could see that creep back a little bit. On the pressure stuff for New England, I think part of that is you play the Jets twice, you play the Bengals with Flacco, you play the Giants. It's part of that is the schedule thing, and I know the Chargers' offensive line is terrible, and it's right there with all of them. I just have more faith in Herbert's ability to, if they are blitzing, find the guy and have some success and lead the Chargers to a win.
That is something that we targeted early on in the year too, is when you do blitz Herbert and don't get pressure, he makes you pay. So that could definitely be a spot to take advantage of this one. We're going to jump over to another game, one that I'm targeting here, one that I'm not buying, the first matchup that we saw these teams play out. I'm going over to the Rams and the Carolina Panthers. And I'm going to actually push this line from 10.5 to 12.5 for the Rams. I'm going to take Ted McMillan, 8+ receptions, Blake Corum, 70+ rushing yards. And like I said, I'm just not buying that Panthers win in Carolina in Week 13. I don't think lightning strikes twice. And the big thing for that game is that it took 3 Rams turnovers for the Panthers to win this game. Not only just 3 turnovers, 3 very consequential turnovers. 2 in the red zone and 1 in the midfield that ended up being a pick 6. High leverage plays, all of them just a little bit fluky. And generally, the Rams have been a good team at taking care of the football. Top 10 in fewest turnovers this season. I expect Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford to have answers for this. So I'm going to tell the story of the Rams pressing the gas early and daring the Panthers to keep up with them in the passing game. Now, oddly enough, that's sort of a trend that we've taken with this Panthers team a few times this year, betting on some of their passing volume stuff and, them to sort of turn the switch and not take such a conservative approach to the game. I think that this can be a spot where they do that because the season is on the line. They do have to keep up with this Rams team, and if the Rams get out to a big lead, they have no other choice. So when we talk about Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, who both won PFF hardware this week. If you guys haven't checked it out, go check out the PFF awards on PFF.com. Matthew Stafford won the PFF MVP. Puka Nacua won Offensive Player of the Year. And Nakua's been absolutely incredible down the stretch here. He broke the PFF record for the highest graded game by a wide receiver. And that was in Week 14. That was right after this Carolina game. And he had 2 of the top 10 highest graded games by a wide receiver down this last 5-game stretch to close out the season. So he's been absolutely phenomenal here. They're also going to be getting back Devontae Adams. He was a full practice all week. Rams, we talked about it again with that pressure, our pressure matchups piece. The Rams are 3rd in EPA per dropback from a clean pocket. Carolina, 31st in pressure rate. The last time they played, they only had 6 total pressures. So I think that it's not going to be the same issue of we're turning over the football. I think they're going to button that up and figure it out. And if they're going to be playing from a big lead, I think we see an opportunity for this Rams running game. Particularly, I like the value of Blake Corum because this rushing output has not really been as weighted as, it's all Kyren Williams' backfield and Blake Corum comes in to clean it up. Since Week 10, Kyren Williams, his rushing splits, 55% of the carries. On the other side of this thing, Blake Corum, about 40% of the carries. So they're really not too far off from each other. And Corum himself, he's played really well when he's gotten the football here. 3rd highest rushing grade in the NFL since Week 13, the last time that they played this team. He's hit 70+ in 3 of 6 games, and including that last time they played Carolina, where he had 81. But really, I think this opens up another opportunity that can't really be added into this parlay. But on DraftKings, they have a line here for Kyren Williams and Blake Corum to combine for 125+ rushing yards, and I believe that was like plus 136 there. So a good value there that I think you're going to be able to hit, because when you talk about both of them, Blake Corum in that matchup, 81. Kyren Williams, he had 70+ in that game as well. So there is an opportunity for them. And the big smoking gun here for this team is the Rams are one of the best teams in the NFL in yards before contact per attempt. They're in the top 3. When we look at the other side of this, Carolina's defense, they're bottom 5 in limiting yards before contact. The last time they played, they got everything they wanted. 3.0 yards before contact per attempt in that matchup. So I really think that this is an opportunity where they can get out to a big lead with the passing game and then really just run it down their throats and just get everything they want on the ground there. And it's really going to force the Panthers to throw the football. Rams, on the other side of this, we're talking about this pressure matchup thing. Rams, top 4 in pressure rate in the NFL. And Tet, he's going to get a lot of work, particularly if they're down. He leads Carolina in targets when pressured. This is something we talked about in that matchup. I took him at over 4.5, and I'm pushing this out to about his ceiling there. He's 17th in the NFL in target rate under pressure among wide receivers. one of the Rams' issues, something that Judah, that we've talked about in previous weeks, is their ability in perfect coverage over down the stretch. They've really struggled covering wide receivers in that regard. 23rd in receptions allowed to wide receivers this season. I believe it was since week 13. They were bottom 10 in open targets allowed to wide receivers. So I think this could be an opportunity where down quite a bit, he can get a bunch of volume in this matchup. Ben, are you seeing anything else in this one that I might have missed?
No, I don't think so. I'm just staying away from this game from a spread perspective. Everything points to that first game was a fluke. The Rams should cover. But this Carolina team's been weird all year. They're at home. Weather's going to be a thing in this game. So I don't have a strong read on this spread. The Carolina 8+ receptions. He's done it once this year. It was in that Atlanta game where they threw the ball a bunch. That's what has to happen in this game, and it could. Kind of like we talked about last week with Tampa Bay. It's only happened once. I think the Panthers, at least initially, are going to come out and try to condense the game and limit possessions and play slow and all that stuff that you typically see from underdogs. I don't think they're going to come out firing. But if they do, McMillan has a chance. This is a Rams defense that has given up production to wide receivers. Quentin Lakes looks like he's going to be back, which helps their secondary. But, yeah, I can see this at 65-1.
Judah, do you see anything particularly in that matchup?
Yeah, I love the Corum shout. I think the split, even if you look more recently, is kind of 50-50-ish. The one call out there would be that the Rams have often found themselves in kind of blowout game states, but I'm not so sure that this one's going to be any different. And even 2 weeks ago, Corum got hurt in that Atlanta game, but he was out carrying Kyren Williams in that first half.
I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about that game.
I don't want to talk about that bet either. I really, honestly, I was tilted that he came back last week. I was like, at least if he's going to be hurt. Yeah, that was a tough one. But yeah, I like the Corum shout. And this one, I think has a very, very wide range of outcomes, and I think it's largely dependent on how kind of each team plans to attack.
I think at 65-1, though, for a team as good as the Rams are on paper at so many spots, I like the potential of what we could definitely get there. The Tet McMillan thing is, I think, the biggest hurdle for this one because it does rely on them sort of changing their ways and pushing the issue. Now, some of this involves them getting out to a pretty big lead early, the Rams that's sort of going to force the hand of Carolina. So I definitely see what you guys are saying there, though, but that is why we're looking at a 65-1 here. And you don't get too many 65-1s for a team that's massive favorites there on that one. So it's going to be an interesting draw there. Judah, we're on to you, my friend.
Yeah, we're going with.
Judah, sorry, Judah, not to interrupt. I want to give a shout out to all of your work over there because Judah writes up tons of same game parlays every single week. So make sure you guys go check him out on PFF.com. But Judah, give us your winner for this week.
Yeah, so we hit on a 90-1 earlier this year, a 15-1 last week. We got a 1-up it with a 130-1. It's going to be Jordan Love 300 yards, under 30.5 attempts, and Jaden Reed 90 receiving yards. So we kind of discussed, I think, the angle that I like Jordan Love passing, and that is kind of most pointedly the fact that he has been absolutely dominant against perfect coverage, and the Bears have really, really struggled there, and then the wide receivers are all healthy for Chicago, which I think is kind of the recipe for a very efficient day. And Jordan Love, again, has like some splits depending on whether or not the defense can disrupt. And I think a lot of his weaker games have come in spots with defenses far worse. And that's obviously really baked into the median projection here of the attempts, which are obviously still low. Weather's a concern. If we get word that, it's 25-mile-per-hour winds, I will have regret placing this SGP, but so it goes. I think really where the value comes is in Jaden Reed in particular. And that is... he's been sort of phased into this offense. I assume he'll be a full go. And if we want to look at even historically the types of defenses where Reed and Watson are both extremely explosive, right? They do it in somewhat different ways. Historically, Watson has done this a lot on the very, very deep downfield targets and against man coverage teams and in more of that single high. Jaden Reed has done it more so in the zone 2 high, where he, even this year in the small percentage of snaps he's played, is getting the majority of the targets. And I think kind of the story finds a nice cohesive unit. It's like some Packers player is going to have to pop off for a big play for the first 2 parts to hit, right? Like if Love is going to go over his yards and under his attempts, it's got to be someone. And the market here is really baking in that it's Christian Watson. And I think the matchup really kind of points to Jaden Reed instead. And we're getting this at very, very long odds. And I think like Jaden Reed is going to be as likely, if not more likely, than any Packers receiver to be the one to break an explosive play in a matchup that I think really kind of points to the Packers being able to move the ball efficiently.
Jaden Reed, I mean, he's been such a pivotal, addition back to this lineup, and he's really taken that offense to another level where they can operate at a like we talked about. I mean, they have a first-round receiver, Matthew Golden, and he gets less than 10 routes run a game. It's because of guys like Jaden Reed and the rest of this crew. Ben, do you see anything on that parlay in particular?
I like it. I've got to love yards per attempt SGP in as well. Don't have the Reed 90 piece of it, but it makes sense. I guess the only concern is like Kyler Gordon might come back, which certainly helps the slot specifically for Chicago, but that doesn't prevent this from happening. So at 130 to 1, I like this a lot.
It's going to be, I mean, that's going to definitely be one of the best games of the weekend, bar none. I mean, in a slate of great games, it doesn't get much better than, rivalry on Wildcard weekend, especially this rivalry. So it's going to be a good one. And of course, make sure you guys check out all of Judah's work over on PFF.com. I've got some more stuff coming out on PFF.com as well. So make sure you guys get in on that. And of course, if you need yourself a PFF Plus subscription, 30% off right now with promo code HOLIDAY30. And boys, that about does it for us. We've got a good week of football in. We're going to be back same time next week. And of course, for Ben Linsey, for Judah Fortgang, I'm Mason Cameron. For our producers behind the glass, same time next week. See you guys then.